Good evening, guys. World War II vehicle guy here with another little video here. This time we're going to be on a 42 GPW. Haven't got a whole lot of videos of it. I know I kind of did a walk around of it the last time. I had discussed that it needed some things. And we are slowly knocking them off here. I just kind of wanted to go over a couple little tech tips with these old World War II Jeeps. I know there'll be a bunch of guys here that disagree with me, say I'm doing stuff wrong. But this is how I've done it on all of my trucks, and all of my trucks are pretty much turnkey. So one of the biggest things I see people having issues with is with this diffuser gasket here on the bottom of the carburetor. Some people say, oh, you don't need it, but really you do need it because from what I've been told, the way these old flatheads run, the diffuser there is there to help diffuse the fuel. It's kind of like a V that sits down here in the intake manifold, and it helps disperse the fuel evenly, for lack of better terms. But one big thing people have is they rebuild their carburetor, they get it on the Jeep, and it runs like absolute crap. One of the biggest things I've seen here is there's an intake leak right around the base of the carburetor with this diffuser gasket. So what I've been told and what I've always done is you really, once you put the carburetor on there, you really want to crank these nuts down. Like, not to the point where they're going to snap off the studs, but you definitely do want to get them compressed as tight as you can. That way that gasket crushes and seals as it should. Like I said, I see a lot of times where people have major intake leaks, and 99% of the time it's caused by this diffuser gasket. I also did add a little bit of silicone. You know, you could call me crazy, whatever. But I've done that on this Jeep, and it runs like an absolute top. What I did was put a little bit of silicone around the holes because the gasket isn't 100% perfect. I'd put some silicone around the holes, crushed it down nice and good, and voila, you have no intake leaks. Another thing I've seen people with tuning these old World War II Jeeps is they want to use a timing light, which, yes, you can use a timing light and the timing marks on the flywheel. I kind of always do it by ear with my trucks, but with this Jeep, I did use a vacuum gauge. That helped me set my ignition timing as well as my air-fuel ratio mixture screw. So obviously you want to set it to where you get the best vacuum rating on the vacuum gauge and go from there. But like I said, I did use a vacuum gauge. A lot of people like to use the old-school timing light. It is kind of hard on these World War II trucks, especially the 6-volt ones, because you'll need a 12-volt battery to run your you'll need a 12-volt battery to run the timing light, but you can't run it off the Jeeps because it's 6-volt. So it kind of makes it a little harder to do, but it is possible. But like I said, I use a vacuum gauge. Just tap into it here in the intake manifold and get your vacuum reading and set your mixture and timing by that. Like I said, I know there's going to be a lot of guys that disagree with me on that. That's the way I do it, and it's always worked. But I also, on all of my gaskets, I use the spray gasket, a little bit of copper spray gasket. I've used it on the head gaskets, the intake manifold gasket, the exhaust manifold gaskets. I always like to spray it, give it a good even coating, and then get it bolted onto the Jeep after it cures for a few minutes. Like I said, I've always used it. I've always done it that way, and I've never had any issues. Especially when I did that truck with the exhaust manifold, I did the same thing, and that truck runs like an absolute top as well. But definitely pay attention to that diffuser gasket. You want to make sure that's good and tight. You have no vacuum leaks there. Obviously, if you have a rough idle, can't get it dialed in, the best way to find a vacuum leak I found on these old World War II Jeeps is take a can of brake clean, the flammable kind, spray it around the intake manifold, and obviously if you hear your engine RPMs kick up, you found your your intake manifold leak. So that's another good way to diagnose the Jeeps. These things are pretty finicky from what I've found. I've seen these old flatheads in the Dodges. They'll pretty much run regardless, but these little Go Devil engines, they are pretty particular in how they like their carburetor set up and all of that. But we did get a new exhaust manifold. Like I said, the old manifold was cracked around the horn area, the ram horn area. It had been brazed at some point, but that didn't hold up. So I did end up just getting new replacement manifold from Peter DeBella. Got a new header pipe that had a pinhole in it, so it was causing an exhaust leak there. And unfortunately, the new header pipes from Peter DeBella, you have to make sure you have the correct muffler, or else it won't go into the opening of your old muffler. So I pretty much got a whole new kit. We got all that taken care of. So now we'll just do a little startup here. It has been running. This isn't a cold start, but this is a nice warm start. And we'll see what she does here. Hopefully I did everything right. And it should start right up. How about that? I'd say that's a pretty good, well done job there. I don't hear any exhaust leaks, so that's a plus. Before it was pretty atrocious. She sounds good and healthy. Don't hear any miss or anything like that. I call that pretty good. We also did get a new windshield gasket here. I got tired of rain coming in. As I was driving in the rain, it would seep down here between the windshield frame and the pane. So got that gasket replaced. That wasn't too bad of a job. When I first got this Jeep, it took a while to get it dialed in, I'll say. It does have an Omex distributor in it. It does not have the original auto light. This gave me fits for quite a while, but once I got all the bugs worked out of it, it seems to work just fine. The biggest thing is it would have an intermittent miss, especially when it was at high RPMs. It took a little while to find, but the rotor is supposed to have on the one side to hold it against the cam, the distributor cam. It has a little tab, and that tab had worn down, so the rotor was essentially moving a little bit, and that in turn caused your timing to be a little bit out of whack, especially higher RPMs when that thing's really spinning, and it's just going all over the place. So we did get that taken care of, and it was running great, and then we had it out one night, and it really started running bad, missing like crazy. Well, the rubbing block on the points, the cheap Chinese points, it had broken off, and essentially a 20 thousandths gap, but was barely opening. Like it was like 2 thousandths. So you can only imagine what kind of headaches that caused me for the ignition system. But did get good quality points from Peter DeBella again. Got those installed, and it runs like a top, as you see. Barely half a crank, and it's running. You have to excuse the mismatched paint on the water pump. I know. It drives me crazy too. But I just had to make it work because it was leaking like crazy. I had to get a new replacement, and I didn't have time to source the correct Ford gray. But it does work. That's all I really care about. You can see here, this does have an F-script head. This is a GPW block. So this Jeep's a good runner and driver. We'll get some driving videos of it here at some point in time. I don't know where all you guys are located at. Currently, it's probably about 5 degrees here in Pennsylvania, so it's quite cold. I don't have any heat out in the garage at this moment. I do have the wood burner in here, but I didn't feel like starting it just for about an hour since I've been out here. Little update on the other trucks. The WC56 decided to start leaking coolant everywhere. So we did have to get a water pump on order. That should be here tomorrow from John Bazal out at Midwest Military. It's probably been leaking at some point. I mean, it's probably been leaking at for quite a while. You can see there how all the dried up antifreeze. I kind of figured something was up because once this truck got good and hot, you could smell antifreeze. So we'll get that taken care of this weekend. Get it all buttoned up, and hopefully she'll be all ready to go. It's kind of the update on the collection here. The next video you'll probably see is on this truck. And then I think we're going to start on the G506 Chevy, the 42-ton-and-a-half cargo truck. So that'll be exciting. But until then, keep them rolling. Keep these World War II trucks on the road. Have a good night, everyone.